This morning on BRN, the impacts of the 2025 Social Security COLA. Joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Mari Backman is a senior financial journalist. Mari, Happy New Year. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us on the program this morning.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about Social Security because, a new year means changes to the program, as always.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Mari. And I think our audience is very familiar with your work because you've been on the program numerous times before. Let's talk about the cost of living adjustment, or COLA, for 2025. What is it and what does it mean?
Sure. So years back, lawmakers decided that Social Security benefits were going to be eligible for an automatic COLA. The COLA was going to be pegged to inflation so that, inflation rises, benefits get a little bit of a boost. And when you think about it, it makes sense to have COLAs be automatic as opposed to needing, Congress to vote in a raise to Social Security benefits year after year. It just makes the process a lot more seamless. And logically, there are people who collect Social Security for 15, 20, 30 years, and the value of a dollar is going to get eroded over a period that lengthy. So we need Social Security COLAs to enable seniors to be able to maintain their buying power as living costs go up. So every year, Social Security gets a COLA. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. Every year, Social Security is eligible for a COLA. When inflation remains flat, Social Security benefits remain flat. When there's a decrease in inflation from one year to the next, Social Security benefits also remain flat. Luckily, there's no such thing as a negative COLA. So you're not going to see your Social Security benefit decrease, thankfully, from one year to the next, even if inflation goes that route. You're only going to see your benefit stay the same or go up.
Yeah, and could you imagine, Mari, if there was a negative COLA and they started trying to reclaim Social Security benefits? You imagine all the people that would be lined up at the Social Security Administration. Good for them that they don't have a negative COLA. Mari, let's talk about inflation, because we have seen over the last year plus food prices increase, gasoline prices increase, other prices increase. How does this COLA factor that in, and how does it compare maybe to previous years?
Sure. So, thankfully, inflation has cooled pretty nicely over the past year. We're not seeing the same levels of inflation that we did back in 2021 on the heels of all those stimulus policies. We're not seeing the same level of inflation as 2022. The funny thing about Social Security COLAs and inflation is that, the way I've always tried to explain it is they sort of cancel each other out. So this year's COLA is 2.5%. Benefits are rising 2.5%, and a lot of seniors are frankly bummed about that, because when we look back to recent COLAs, the year before benefits went up 3.2%. Before that, we had some of the largest COLAs in history. We had 8.7%, we had 5.9%. These were the COLAs that came about following that period of real rampant inflation that we saw following the pandemic. So, a lot of people are pretty up in arms about this 2.5% COLA. Oh, it's not enough. It's such a measly little raise. But the thing to remember is that because COLAs are tied to inflation, when you have a not so generous COLA, it also means that inflation hasn't been all that bad. You kind of can't have one without the other, right? So, when seniors were seeing their benefits rise almost 6% or close to 9%, all those COLAs did was match inflation. So what you gain in one regard, you gain a higher boost, a larger boost to your Social Security benefit. You lose in the form of prices really going up a lot, significantly, from one year to the next. So in the past year, what we've seen is, yes, we have seen costs continue to go up. And look, I'm not retired, but I've seen my own bills increase exponentially, and I've got a family to feed, and it's stressful. It's stressful going to the supermarket and buying like 6 yogurts and a jug of milk and a loaf of bread, and it's like that'll be $22.50, and it's like, what? This was like, these are groceries that I'm carrying out in my hand, and a week's worth of food for my family. It seems like I'm paying more than ever. So I'm definitely sympathetic to seniors who feel that, you know, their 2.5% COLA is not really going to cut it for 2025. I can see where they're coming from because costs are still high, but things could also be worse.
Well, they could be worse, Mari. They could be a lot worse. I want to ask you about taxation because how does taxation, or does taxation, factor into this cost of living adjustment? Does that mean anything to those directly taking Social Security?
So it's a funny thing. So seniors are often shocked to learn that Social Security benefits can be taxable at the federal level. There can also be state taxes on Social Security, actually, depending on the state you live in and the amount of your total income. But the federal government can tax a portion of your Social Security benefits. And that doesn't sit well for a lot of seniors. It almost feels kind of like a double taxation, right? Because throughout our working years, we're all paying into Social Security on our wages. And you know, the promise is that you're going to pay taxes, you're going to pay into Social Security, but then when you're older and retired, you're going to get a monthly benefit. And then it's like, hey, guess what? You're not necessarily going to keep that monthly benefit in full because once your income exceeds a certain threshold, a portion of your benefits can be taxed. Now, here's the problem. Social Security is eligible for an annual COLA, which means that benefits historically like have risen from one year to the next. There have been a few years in history with a zero COLA, but for the most part, we have seen benefits rise from one year to the next. The problem is that the income thresholds that determine whether you're going to pay taxes on your Social Security benefits, those income thresholds have not increased since 1984. So
Long time ago.
it's a long,
That's a long time ago. I was 12.
time ago. It's a
I was
long time.
12, Mari.
So I'm not going to say how old I was, but I was around. It was a long time ago. So, you know, when you kind of just then logically put those two pieces together, it's like, well, wait a minute, you know, so Social Security benefits rise every year, and Social Security benefits are calculated in the formula that determines your income and that determines whether your income is high enough to have your benefits taxed, if you get what I'm saying. Basically, it's a concept called combined income. It's a factor of your adjusted gross income. It throws in any like tax exempt interest income you receive. Like if you're a municipal bond investor, you might get some tax-free income. That's counted as into your combined income. And then also half of your annual Social Security benefit is factored into your combined income. And basically, if you're single, once your combined income is $25,000 or higher, you're going to be paying taxes on a portion of your Social Security benefits. Now, let's think about that. $25,000. I mean, you know, yes, that's factoring in half your annual Social Security benefit, but even if we want to pad that by another $10,000, $12,000, let's talk about $37,000 a year, $40,000 a year. Are you like rolling in dough at $40,000 a year? I'm not.
No, you're typically at especially if you're a retiree, you're at a fixed income. And so that, one of the things I want to ask you about, I want to kind of close on this, is you talked about taxation now during the campaign, and we're not a political show, but there were some policy preferences or suggestions about eliminating the tax on Social Security. First, Mari, is that possible, and what would that mean to our conversation this morning about the cost of living adjustment?
So that's a tricky thing too, because President-elect Trump has pledged to eliminate taxes on Social Security benefits, and a big part of me wants to say that that's a really good idea because there's a lot of people whose income is really right above that threshold where they're liable for taxes, right? But since we just discussed that it was such a low threshold, these people cannot afford to lose some of their benefits to taxes. So in that regard, I think eliminating taxes on Social Security benefits could be a positive thing. But then we also have to remember that Social Security doesn't just get funded by payroll taxes, it gets funded by these taxes on benefits. Now, as it stands, we are already looking at a funding shortfall for Social Security. The program's combined trust funds are set to run dry in 2035. And at that point, benefit cuts could be on the table. So now we have to balance the upside of, not taxing Social Security so that seniors get to keep their benefits in full now versus the potential downside of, well, then what does that do to Social Security's overall financial picture? And what does that mean for benefit cuts down the line? It's a very tricky thing, and I do not envy lawmakers who have to, make these decisions. And Jeff, to be clear, there's a push to not only end taxes on Social Security benefits, but also to change the way Social Security COLAs are calculated. That's a whole other issue, because the reality is that the formula that's used now is not very beneficial to seniors. It really does not very accurately capture the costs that seniors specifically tend to incur. So lawmakers really have their work cut out for them in the coming years with regard to Social Security.
They certainly do, Mari. We've got a new Congress, a new president. Hey, look, they can't kick the can down the road too much longer because they're going to have to deal with other potential challenges. Mari, it's always great to see you. Expert analysis, as always. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Sounds great.
And don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse, for all the news in one place. Details, of course, at our website. And we're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.